Yo, how's it going? We are down here in Texas, down by the border. Was gonna go get some breakfast and stuff. I'm in the Yoda. Let's talk about it. Okay, so I was watching this thing, and this guy said something about the way a man changes when he has kids and stuff. And then I watched another thing, and this guy, man, his son got snake bit. They had to lifeline him and stuff. And man, it was just so similar to when my son died. And I mean, they like lifelined him to the same town. You know what I mean? And when my son had, then I talked to my wife later, and I was like, man, it was just so similar, whatever. I felt a great stirring in my belly. It felt like my stomach was inside out as I was talking with her and everything. And I was just like, I'm on her case about establishing order in her house and the usurping of authority. Because, like, I can't. I can't stress to her enough to pay attention while she's driving, for example. There's this one corner she always goes and just cuts that corner every day. And I'm like, Tracy, they can't see you coming from the other way. Like, you're going to hit somebody head on. I mean, I'm like, if you'll, like, just stay in your lane every time we drive through here, I will pay you $20. And it's one of them things, I'm overly protective and everything like that, and like I'm overly sensitive. On the one hand, on the other hand, like she hasn't seen somebody hit head on by a semi truck, and I've been there, done that, seen the goo. I seen a car wreck one time that it fell off that overpass. They jumped the overpass. The car kind of got hung up on there for just a second, and then it fell because the engine was heavier than the trunk. But it was kind of passenger side front tire hanging, and then it just kind of did like a rail slide, like a skateboard, like grinding a skateboard. And then due to the weight of the motor, it tipped and fell. And so as it's almost hitting the ground, the roof of the car was impacted by a car hauler Peterbilt full of cars. And when the truck hit the car, of course the roof just collapsed like it was nothing. And the car folded around like a taco shell on the front of this Peterbilt. And I was about 5 truck lengths behind, or 30 car lengths, whatever you're going to say. But from the vantage point where I was at, I seen that people squirt like a packet of ketchup. And you just dropped a brick on a packet of ketchup. That's what it looked like. And I'm sure there's like fluids and oil from the vehicle. But there was people in there too. Anyway, so I see this happen, and I'm shutting her down. And that other truck, he's trying to shut it down, and then they fall, and there's an impact, and he's trying to step to the right to avoid the situation. And the momentum of the car, like, I mean, you see it, and it's to your left, you go to the right, and then they continue and fall and pow, and oh man, just like the worst. Couldn't have went worse. And anyways, so I take the exit, because me, like, I'm practical. I'm like, well, I gotta get out of here if there's a fire or whatever. And there's definitely going to be a backup. I don't want to do the paperwork. That's my go-to. And the necessity of the moment, it just immediately happens. I don't even know why I'm like that. I'm just like literally built that way, or molded that way through the dramatic trauma that is my life. Anyway, so I pull up there on the exit and everything, and I go over there, And, we do the best we can, blah, blah, cops, this, that, the other. Time goes by. I leave. And I'm walking back to the truck because I pull up, take the off ramp, go over the overpass, down onto the on ramp, and park on the shoulder. And that way, I have egress. And I'm walking. I walk back to the scene, do what I can. I walk back to the truck, and I'm walking back to the truck, and it had that cable barrier in the middle. And on that cable barrier, it was a ponytail, dude. It was a little girl's freaking ponytail. It looked like if you'd imagine like an Indian scalp or something. And it was on there, but like the tail was still moving. You know what I mean? Like if something's inanimate or somebody's even asleep or whatever else like that, it's a thing. But that ponytail just slowly blowing in the wind was one of the most. I mean, it really stick out. We'll just leave it there, anyways. So I'm watching this guy, and he said something about I failed. I hear everything he's talking about, and the emphasis and where it was, and how he could have been a better prepper and all this kind of stuff. And then like when they made it home, and his woman finally had that sigh of relief, and all this other kind of stuff. And I'm listening to the whole thing, and I'm like, but he's like, I'm blessed this, I'm blessed that, and everything. I'm like, okay, yeah, knowledge duly noted. But there's so much greater lessons there, and the finding those and sharing those is a wonderful thing, right? So I'm telling my wife this stuff and everything, and she's like, have you forgiven yourself? Because I'm telling her, I'm like, the particulars don't matter. My son died on my watch all those years ago. It does not matter, the particulars. Uh, yeah, I walked in the room, the doctor's like saying goodbye. They pushed air into the thing. He had a surgery and he didn't make it, you know? And they let him stay alive. And we walked in that room and he's just laying there flopping, fighting for his life. And I'm just straight faced. If you'd have talked to me, I'd have the same voice pattern I have right now. It's just like when these things are happening, it's like it's not even real to me. I fall apart later. In the moment, I'm just doing whatever's got to be done. I have an amazing surge of adrenal, whatever, and some Holy Ghost right now that's tangible in this car. Anyways, so they're like, say goodbye. And my wife's like, goodbye. The first wife, Kyla, she's like, goodbye, or whatever. And she's just losing it. And I watched that dude push that air in there. I think he grabbed another one, he put it over there, and he pushed more air in there. And there was a real erratic on the beep, beep, beeper. And then it just, flatlined. And I was just like, you know what I mean? There was a release of mercy that I seen. And I didn't realize how far that would reach. So, like, I understand why people, pro tip, the moment of silence is the guy talking's got to gather himself. battles are fought. And these battles are not against flesh and blood. These things are to stop understanding. And people die because of a lack of understanding. A misnomer, to whatever degree, supplanted goodness via evil. Particulars do not matter. The solution matters. How do we stop it from happening again? How do we fix what's the pieces that we have here? What do we do with them? And how do we proceed in a manner to avoid further similar outcomes? Throw in your tragedy, whatever it is, right? Anyways, so I had read the Bible some at that point in my life. But later, I think it was DUI. I was in jail, and I'm reading. That might have been before, might have been after. I had two of them. I can't remember which one's which off the top of my head. However, I'm reading in there, and it said, God forgives us the way we forgive others. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, snap. If this is real, this is my ticket. You know what I mean? I mean, this ain't Willy Wonka and the chocolate factory here. This is, if this book is right, I can see my son. And I read some more in there. And there was a part in there that stuck out to me about David. You know, and, he's trying to, the shepherds were the lowly ones. And his dad thought so little of him that when it come time for the next king to be anointed, bring forth your sons, he brought all his sons in there. And it had to be questioned to even remember that David was out there in the field. This dude's out here, slaying bears and lions and looking up at the stars at night and considering the awesomeness of God, and he's downtrodden and he's, got family problems and all kinds of, yeah, buddy. But God was molding him. Well, later on, I read that Solomon talked to God, asked for wisdom. We're all familiar with that, more than likely. If not, go ahead and read it. Highly recommend that. But my point here right now, without a different train of thought, is that he messed some stuff up because he asked for wisdom. God's like, cool, your heart's in the right spot. I'm going to teach you how to take care of these folks. And the result of that is you're going to have power and money and resources. Well, of course, he's a man. So, and he comes from a broken home. There's all kinds of problems. And the way of living that his dad was brought into. So Solomon's granddaddy had these sons and had these problems and blah, blah, whatever. Doesn't even remember David. Then David's the king and stuff like that. Kind of funny how we don't hear a lot about David's dad after that, Solomon's grandpa. What happened to Solomon's grandpa after that? I'm fresh out of recollection. That's not to be overlooked. So anyway, later, Solomon, in generational fashion, due to observed behavior while young, had some issues. At one point, God comes to him and he says, I should take everything from you. But your dad was a good dude. So I'm not gonna. This is your chance to get right. Basically, read it for yourself. Find it. Put it in the comments. Shit, give me some chapter and verse. I'm tired of carrying this whole load by myself. Somebody send me a comment. Anyway, her doubt, I don't care. It might help whoever's watching this later, though. That's the part I care about. Okay, so I'm like, my son passed away. And then my wife was, she had some issues with taking pills at the time. I'm a roofer, so like I either have a giant pack, a pocket full of money, or I'm so broke I'm considering stealing a loaf of bread because it's February in Oklahoma, right? So it's feast or famine, and I'm not educated in. Well, maybe I should save some of this money till it gets cold. I starve every winter for the last 5 years. Perhaps I should save some of this money. But live and learn. Anyways, them doctors and stuff, they're not going to fess up when they kill your kid. Okay? 2.5 years after my son died. I found out before he's my stepson, by the way, and he was black. And watching this video, this guy is black and his kid gets bit by a snake. And then they lifelike to Tulsa. So I'm just like, a lot of similarities here, stirring up a lot of feelings. And my wife was like run to the hospital over nothing all the time. Okay, so we get together and everything like that. We're shacked up. We're not married yet. We live together for a while and then we get married or whatever. But like in the first 2 weeks, she took this kid to the ER 3 times. Like every time, it's like, oh, he's got a splinter. Take him to the ER. Like I come home, nobody's home. I'm like trying to find out. Can't find my wife and her son at the time. I consider him adopted. He's my son. And bro, like 4 hours later they come home. I'm like, where in the world have you been? I've called everybody. Oh, we were at the ER. Well, what was wrong? Oh, they said it's nothing. You know what I mean? So this just goes on and on, over and over, and I'm just like, and like me and her go out of town, and like her mom watches my dog and gets my dog neutered. Like I come home and like 3 days later, I'm like looking at my dog, and then I notice his balls are gone, and I'm like, I look at him and he looks at me and he's got a little, quiver in his eye or whatever, and I'm just like, what have they done? You know what I mean? I mean, even that was like, softening me up for the betrayal. And then when somebody dies, everybody starts pointing fingers and accusing and stuff like that and everything like that. And there I am in that moment. I got this woman. Yeah. Oh, and this goes on for like 2 years because we have a baby together, and then she's pregnant, about to have another baby. So this is some years long situation or whatever. Anyway, fast forward or whatever like that. It's probably 2 years. Well, I probably got her pregnant within the first week. And then we got married and stuff. And I think we were married after the first baby, but before the second one. Like she was pregnant, and then Dylan died, and like things move fast. I don't remember all the particulars, but 2 years later, like I'm in Florida, and I'm sitting there talking with her, and she gets out this album, and she's flipping through this album, and she flips this thing open to this little Ford car. And I'm looking at this car, and I'm like, what the hell? I mean, this car is smashed. And I'm like, what the hell happened to this car? And she's like, oh, yeah, that's what I was, you remember I was working such and such when we got together, blah, blah. She'd pull a 36-hour shift at a nursing home, and she pushed the med cart. That's what she did. And which is crazy, the side note. She was eating them old people's pain meds to get high and stay awake to do the job, and giving them freaking ibuprofen. And those people that had severe problems and were crippled started getting better. They started being, because she was just slowly stealing from them. They're on, like, 4 or 5 Lortabs or whatever, Tylenol threes or whatever else like that. And then my old lady's freaking stole a script pad, writing her own scripts, you know eating 80 of these sub bitches over the weekend. And yeah. And so she's low dose, and she inadvertently, which is crazy to me, but now, well, Skip, how do you know so much stuff? Well, I fucking seen shit, you know. Well, she would tell me, she'd be like, yeah, so and so's doing so much better, whatever. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, what do you mean? They're like, well, she went outside today. I'm like, what do you mean they went outside today? And she's like, yeah, for the last, 18 years, she's been in the bed. And now she's in the nursing home, and my wife's stealing her pain medicine because she's got a drug habit. And then now the woman's getting out of bed, going outside. So, don't take the pills, man. Like, bro, there was nothing wrong with that lady. There was nothing wrong with that lady. They gave her pills that gave her cramps and stuff, and then she took pain medicine for the cramps, and then the pain medicine literally incapacitated the lady, and then the lady was able to go outside because my drug addict first wife was eating all the pills. God works in mysterious ways. Anyway, so I'm like, what's up with this car? And she's like, oh, I fell asleep driving home. I said, when did this happen? She's like, oh, just a few months before we got together or whatever. I forget the timeline. And she's like, and then she's flipping through the picture, and there's a car seat. And I'm like, what's, I said, was Dylan with you? Oh, yeah, he was in there. And I'm like, bro, because he had problems with his intestines. They did an exploratory surgery to look at his intestines to figure out what was wrong with him. And you know, it went bad to whatever degree. I don't have the particulars. I don't know. All I know is, like, I woke up in the middle of the night. It's like, hey, I'm taking him to the ER. And I'm just like, okay. She's like, go in the room where the bassinet is, because we just had like a little 1-bedroom duplex thing. We're broke. So we slept in one room, and then the kids slept in the other room, which actually was, the living room / dining room, because it was like, little. So I go in there and lay on the couch. That way, if the baby cries, I'll wake up if the baby wakes up. She's taking Dylan to the hospital. And then her mom pops up. Next thing, I fall asleep and wake up. And the monster-in-law says, they're lifeline Dylan. I literally said to myself, and she just pops in, says some stuff, pops back out. And I'm like, they're really blowing this out of proportion this time. You know what I mean? So I just, like, get the baby and the bottle and everything together, warm up a bottle, and all this kind of stuff, and do all the things to, get in the minivan, and I drive up there. I'm, like, not even speeding. Like, I'm not even, I think that's bullshit. And I get up there, and I walk in, and I'm talking with some people, and their mom's there and everything, and they're watching the baby and everything like that. And I go and I meet the woman, and then we go in the room, and they're like, say goodbye. And I'm just standing there, like, at this point, I'm just, like, in shock. And then when I see him shaking on the table and everything like that, I'm just like, I'm just locked up, dude. I just fucking locked up. I just locked up, dude. And then I say goodbye, and I watch that fucking doctor kill my son. And it felt like mercy. If I had the name of feeling in that moment, that was in the room. Like, not a feeling I had. Not something Skip. Skip is in shock. Skip is go mode. What do I do? And very clear, crisp. There's nothing I can do. And, later looking back, I was like, I didn't pray. I didn't know enough to pray. I was in shock. So she's crying and everything else like that, and everything like that. And then, they're like, hey, we need to talk to DHS or whatever. They want to stick their nose in the business or whatever like that. And, I'm like, man, I need to go smoke a cigarette. You know what I mean? So I go outside, and, whatever. It proceeds on. So, I need to be taking care of my wife. So I agreed for my mother-in-law to take the baby. And she's pregnant. And we're like, we'd been married at this point, like, together for years, but just, married not even that long. And we kind of eloped, I guess you'd say. And her dad, Wolfman, shows up. And he's like, well, here, you know what I mean? He's got like this basket thing for like, a wedding gift. And it's got like a hotel thing or whatever. So like we go to the hotel and we're just like in shock or whatever. We stay the night there. The next day we go home. Walk in and it's just like empty. And I laid there and I'm trying to just like, I'm just crying, right? I'm laying flat on my back in the floor. And she's in the bed. I ain't paying attention to what she's doing. And I got up. And when I got up, water ran out of my ears. My ears had filled with tears completely. And I looked at the bed and she's just sitting there. And she's looking at me. And she's like, I can't stay here. I was like, I can't stay here either. So we just lived in the van for a while. And we're going through some things or whatever, fast forward all this time. I wind up going to jail. Well, I wind up like running from the cops because they tried to put me in jail because I had a warrant for my arrest. I think it was for fines or something. I can't even remember what it was. I've been in that jail so many times, it's all a blur on that deal. All misdemeanor bullshit. Stuff that they wouldn't even take you to jail for 90% of it today. Most of it's legal right now if you did the same thing, for the record. And anyway, I wound up getting called up. I'm over there in Delaware County. I write a letter to the judge, and I'm like, just let me go because she's having a C-section. I'm writing this on behalf of my wife. And I've been in there for like 4 months, and I'm just reading the Bible and stuff. And in there, that's where I seen David was a good dude. So his son, God cut him some slack. So I'm in jail. I can't do nothing for my kids. I can't do nothing for my wife. And then upon getting out, turns out they snatched the kids trying to say we were unfit to be parents. And I make a deal to give my parental rights over to her brother and his wife. And these are like straight-laced Christians. They were literally the best Christians I knew at that time. And yeah, they had money and stuff too. Yeah, well, they could provide. They have a nice house. They got 3 of their own kids, a couple of mine, whatever. So I made that choice. They told me if I left my wife that I could keep my kids. And I'm like, I'm an alcoholic roofer. I'm struggling to provide for myself. You know what I mean? And I think about it and I pray about it and I just did what I had to do. And what I had to do, I made a deal with them, and I'm just like, and they're like, if you're gonna stay with her, we're taking her rights for sure, and then we'll fight you. And the fact you're staying with her, we'll take your rights. I said, well, I'll save you a lot of trouble if you'll make. And I didn't want my kids in the system because like pedophiles, right? So I'm like, put my kids with Cannon and Amanda, so they're in a good Christian home. And in the back of my head, I'm thinking, this family ties, like I'm not actually losing my kids here. I'm losing like a piece of paper. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking this will, work itself out. Maybe it'll take a couple years and, some reunion or whatever like that is what I'm thinking in my head. But they're definitely not going to some Chomo foster home, freaking farmed out to, horrific. And I gotta be husband right now to wife, because wife was on the edge of death before this. And like I remember I had broke her off of the drugs because of the pregnancy. And the way I did that, I had a bunch of, it was like, I think it was Altoids. And I'm like, you want to see what you look like? And I'm just throwing all these things, and I filled up these pill bottles with Altoids. I think I used Altoids and certs or something. And she's sitting on the couch. I staged an intervention basically. And I'm eating all these pills. I'm like, this is what you look like. And I just threw a handful in and drank it, threw a handful in and drank it. She's just like, oh my God, you're going to die eating all this. And then, and she would shoot up B12 in her leg. And she's like, oh, it's a vitamin. I was like, you want to see what you look like? I just drew that whole big old thing up with B12. And then I'm standing in the doorway and I just squirted on the thing. And then I just stabbed it through my pants and my leg, and I just moved my thumb. But the plunger was already down. There was nothing in it. I just fucking stabbed myself with a syringe over nothing, really. But the visual effect. And I'm like, we ain't have no fucking crack, baby. And that's, I thought how I was, the intervened and it worked out or whatever to whatever degree. She may have been taking some I wasn't aware of, but I don't think so. I think she was sober for the rest of the pregnancy, dabbled a little bit, then got pregnant again, and for sure quit the second time. Up until I wound up in jail for like 4 months, sitting at $5 a day on an old fines from like an $800 fine from 6 years ago or something. It was really annoying. But while I was in there, I was reading the Bible. That's what I was there for. And I found that. And I'm like, I'm in a concrete box. I can't take care of my kids are gone. My wife is suicidal. And I'm just like reading all this stuff. And then like, I read on there and it said, God forgives us the way we forgive others. And I jumped down off this rack. And I'm like, this is my ticket. If this is real, this works. This adds up. This makes sense. Everything I've read in this book is making sense with, my upbringing. What I know to be true because been there, done that type of stuff. So there's an accuracy and a truth that I'm recognizing, which I think is supernatural, to be honest with you. Anyways. I show the guy, I say, look. He's like, yeah, I know. I said, no, look, really? He's like, yeah, I know. And I'm like, what? What do you mean you do? And I have all this rage inside of me. Because, like, I have good reason to be mad at lots of people. And it's difficult to contain. And I have capabilities as well. So in this moment, I'm like, I can't beat this guy up because he didn't share the gospel. So I walk out of the cell, and there's what they call the pod, where everybody walks in a circle, and I'm kind of paranoid, so I'm just like, who else knows? And I'm walking up to everybody, I'm like, hey, did you know God forgives us the way we forgive others? And 9 out of 10 people had no idea, and the ones that knew wouldn't tell you on a bet. So now I'm pissed. I'm real pissed, and I'm vocal. I'm walking around. Everybody knows that skip-hippopotamus is a phrase. It's one of the things like if you ever see something and you're just like, hey, okay, yeah, that's what that is. Okay, so like a mad man. So everybody sees this, and now I'm walking around, and it's like Jesus is walking right beside me, but he's chill, but I'm pissed, and I'm like, God, I wasn't afraid of this, that, and the other. I wasn't afraid to drive fast or go for the girl or all these different acts of valor in the game, different situations where men without courageousness fold. And I'm walking through that shit when I'm 9, 11 at the end of the last dirt road, caving a dude's head in with a rock because he's 42 and I'm 11. And like my mom's like has to pull a shotgun on me to like break up the fight. And yeah, like, and Virgil lived, by the way. Like, I didn't cave his head in. I was going to, but Mom cheek on the Ithaca pump. And she's like, if you move, I'm going to blow you away. And I reared back a little bit more. And she said, I'm talking to both of you. And I dropped the rock because, like, Mom didn't lie. If she said she's going to do it, she did it, good or bad. It didn't matter. Mom taught me integrity. Mom taught me watch traits, not words. Anyways. So I'm walking around, I'm stomping mad. And I say, God, I'll go anywhere you want me to go. I'll say whatever you want me to say to anybody you want me to talk to. I will never be afraid to run my mouth and speak your word to your people in your time. I'm not a bitch. And basically, I told the entire jail, fuck you, you're all punk bitches because you didn't tell me the gospel. So, that's significant. But then just now, God's like, make the video. You'll notice the video starts, I'm sitting on the side of the road. So I'm just like driving. So I'm insane or God talks to me. There's literally no other option other than like an evil spirit, perhaps. But why would evil tell me to do good? So, like, what's it producing? Good every time. So, he said, make the video. But what I was thinking about is why do I do what I'm doing? And how am I being selfish? How much of this is I'm doing this for God himself, for his people? And how much is this I'm trying to take care of his kids, hoping he'll take care of mine? And it's the same thing. And last night when my wife's like, have you forgiven yourself? I said, well, it's my responsibility. It doesn't matter why Dylan's dead. He died on my watch. It don't matter. Am I forgiven? Sure. I'm not going to take no glory for God, and my sin is no greater power than the blood of Jesus Christ shed for the whole world for whomsoever will. I like telling the jokes. It's moments of happiness. There's a deal. It talks about the guys getting off the boat, and all the sailors are getting off the boat, and all the people are there. They're waving their little flags, and mom and kids are out there, and the sailor runs up. They get the hug. They get the parade. The missionary gets off the boat. There's nobody waiting. Chances are he got stranded in a foreign country and had to find his way home. I, I, I'm so amazed at how many, like, side note, if you're paying a missionary to go overseas, include the return trip. I'm amazed at how many people get hung up on a mission trip that do not make it back from the mission trip. Anyway, so the joke goes, or the saying, or the story, parable, whatever. So the guy's kind of poopy pants, moping, walking away. And he said, God, where's my parade? He said, son, you're not home yet. So I'm real glad this other guy had a better experience than I did in that the child survived. Excellent. That is I feel a genuine goodness about that. But I recognize, I'm trying to explain to my wife, because she's like, I have to forgive myself. I'm like, I don't have the authority to forgive me. I don't have that authority. He paid the price and he redeemed me from all my sin. From saying motherfucker right now to next Wednesday when I kick a cat to when I was, a young man, running wild with the ladies. Whatever. All of it. He's the King of Kings, Lord of Lords. I can forgive people that have done stuff to me and stuff like that. I don't have the authority to forgive myself for not upholding the office given to me by the master. It's not optional. And every failure is a driving force. There's a man that's a pretty good life coach that makes energy drinks that talks about harnessing the dark energy. Okay, well, that's actually the light, but it's the negative. So you got a positive and you got a negative, and then you got a ground. So some of these things are positive, some of these things are negative, but it completes the circuit. However, if you look at the plug, unplug your television from the wall, look down at it, you'll see the two are blades. The other is a big round one. That's the ground. You are to be rooted and grounded in love. Okay? That's what keeps you safe. So if you have the ability to find out what love is and do a word study and feel yourself with that, and then see why does this work out. It's to make it make sense and glean from your tragedy and all this kind of stuff. You're so much further ahead of the game because you put yourself at the reception point from on high. See, there's a willingness. Abram was willing. Like God told him something. A lot of times I'll be at the gas station. I'll be like, let's role play for a minute. What color is this? You'll say black. And I'll say, no, it's not. What color is this? You'll be like, wood. Like, I'll be like, no, it's not. I'll say, what is this? Well, it's a steering wheel. No, it's not. You see how annoying that is? So God kept telling people stuff, and nobody would agree with what he said. Then he told Abraham something, and Abraham said, okay, all right. And he took him at his word. You see what I'm saying? Like, so there's annoying in the denial, and then there's also, can we do business if it's a $5 item and you think my $5 bill is worth $2 and I think my $5 bill is worth $10? The numbers are easily considered because, like, numbers and math are easy. So if we don't agree on the standard, we can't do business. I mean, we can, but it's the complications spiral out of control. So anytime God tells you this is $5, you're like, okay, this is $5. Then God told this other person what $5 is, and then now we can do business. Like I think it's a 12 millimeter, and you think it's a half inch nut, and I got a bolt. It might work. Maybe it's pretty close. But if you think a 9/16 is a 10 millimeter, and you're over here, I order a 10 millimeter nut and bolt, and then I get 9/16, problems. It just spirals out of control, and it's not as useful. It's not useless. I still might use the bolt somewhere else later, so I will put it in the tray. I keep these extra nuts and bolts because in my experience, God wouldn't give me this 9/16 if I didn't need it for that purpose that I don't realize yet. And then time and time again, purpose shows up. I use the 9/16 even though it's all fuckered up in the moment. There's a lot of stress that's spiraled out of control. But I have that option of that equipment, of that tool, of that knowledge, of that walk. And that directly comes via the willingness. So I'm willing over here, you're willing over there, and then, is it a half inch or is it a 12 millimeter? Is it Yeshua? Is it Joshua? Is it Messiah or is it Christ? Is it Saturday? Is it Sunday? What are you going to do about it? All the time, like you get your pride stepped on and you challenge somebody to a fight. They're like, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? In that same jail, I got punched in the face. And then, like, there's all this blood. And, I fought this giant dude and over cigarettes. And then they called for lockdown. So he walks out of the cell and the other people come in the cell and Mike takes his shirt off and just starts wiping up all this blood and everything. And I go over and sit down and I put a towel on my face and I'm sitting there like I'm reading a book. That way when they do head count, they don't know that there's been this altercation. Then Mike looks at me. He says, man, we got to get that motherfucker. What are we going to do? I looked at him. I said, well, the door's locked. I guess I'm going to sit here and bleed. And I remembered that from a Clint Eastwood movie where he's in jail. And he's like, something about sit there and bleed. And it sounds cool in the movie. So I said that just to, sound tough. And this is a big guy. I mean, I'm not little and I'm not without my wiles. However, I was severely outmatched. This was a gorilla. I mean, he's a white dude and everything, don't get me wrong, but I mean, this, yeah, he's a pretty good sized guy. Anyways, so here I am on the side of the road. There I was last night. And my wife's like, well, I guess you're not ready to have forgiveness yet. And I'm laying there, and of course I've been fasting, right? So like that'll change your guts a little bit. So the Spirit's on me this morning. I've seen this Jewish dude, everything like that. I talked with her last night. I'm watching this stuff. See some other thing about some pothead in the Ozarks, and I see their comments and stuff and the futility of having paid off land, living in a shed, compared to spreading the gospel throughout the land by any means necessary. And for the record, I would rather be smoking pot living in a shed in the Ozark Mountains. That is my preference. Make no mistake about it. Holy moly. So back to the video where the guy was talking about his experience. He talked a lot about the flat tire in his van. He mentioned the fact that in the emergency, hey, my kid's snake bit, go time, roll out. Didn't grab the go bag. He's a prepper. He's got a go bag, right? Ready to snatch it up on the run and go. He talked a lot about these different situations, skills he used, things where he thought he was squared away, but he could have done better. Even the title of it was I Failed. And I'm watching all of this. Previous to this, a guy established a timeline to a probability of basically World War III, and what would that look like if we're attacked with 20,000 missiles simultaneously in the first 30 seconds of said war? What do you do under those circumstances? And I tried to make communication with my homestead in Texas. I had sent some to a couple of choice people yonder. And I'm like, I'm just going to send this out and just see if anybody responds. And I'm just like, the part in the Bible's like about following Jesus. And he tells somebody, he's like, let the dead bury their dead. Drop what you're doing and come on. You know what I mean? Like, and for me, Jesus is telling that guy, God has control of what your family is experiencing, even through the mourning process. If you're following him, he's taking care of your people. Like, what kind of boss am I if my employee that's like down like a disciple, right? This dude's more than an employee, but like, let's just say he's the employee, and like I have the option of medical coverage. Like, how much can God do for you? House, food, water, understanding, medical care, all this kind of stuff. So like being employed by Jesus, what's available to you? What's this? Well, it might not be a lot of cash, but what's the benefits package on this deal look like? It's just like off the chart, right? So, like, well, deny yourself and family and follow me, and I'll show you how to raise the dead. I mean, it's a no-brainer, So when Jesus said, let the dead bury the dead, if you don't follow him, you're not alive. You're already dead. Jesus didn't get rid of the law. He took it to the next level. He took it to the heart, to the nuance, because that's where love dwells. That's why it's mysterious, because we're evil. And all we're doing is waking up to love and its attributes and letting it be the way that we mind, will, and emotions this thing in situations. And that's the indwelling of the Holy Spirit. So to get this from on high power, it's a simple willingness, but you're not the boss of it. You're the employee. Sure, you're a friend, but you're an employee. Sure, you're studying and you don't know everything and you're just a dirt bag full of water, but you got the breath of life in you. So that comes with certain responsibilities and everything. I can't just run wild with my credit card without experiencing the consequences of, interest payments on the debt that's, spiraling out of control, complications. It's a self-correcting cycle. And if you correct it, cool. What did you learn? Share that with your brother. You got the log out of your eye. Help him with his spec. But when I tried to talk about the importance to my wife, and when I heard the man talk about he was a failure, there's different age and stages of various things in life, but there is I don't know how to say this without sounding arrogant. It's off the chart horrible to experience these things. And God can save you and get you through these things. Don't get me wrong, He can. But you will see things differently, in that I don't care about this car. I don't care about this parking lot, that building, money, any of it. Means nothing to me. I can't stress that enough. It literally means nothing. All I see is tools. You know what I mean? I I don't. I'm to the point that I don't even eat food worried about the taste. My spices that everybody's using for flavor, I literally just try to find the best building blocks for my carcass, and I put it in the thing and shook it up. And when I was adding them a little bit at a time, this and that or whatever, it tasted a little bit different each time, and it was good, better than putting it all together. But putting it all together, I get the right ratio of everything each day. So, better's better. I'm shooting for best. Anyways, I'm not taking anything away from anybody. But I didn't come home and see my wife give a sigh of relief a few days later. It was not my experience. Everywhere I went after my son died, everybody, even like the dude I worked with that I grew up with, that his wife would babysit for us while I was at work and she was at work. I remember Doug looked at me and he's just bawling. And he's like, it's just so sad. And I'm comforting him. I'm taking care of my wife. I'm trying to find an alternate place to live. And then when nobody's looking, I'm breaking down. I'm completely broke. I'm completely inoperable. And yeah, I went on about my days for 20 something years now. Seen so many miracles it ain't even funny. Seen so, like, I know things about failure and loss. The big part that people don't get, you don't lose God. Look for what He's teaching you in those moments. But yeah, sure, you want a half-inch socket, for your half-inch, you want a half-inch deep weld socket for your half-inch bolt. You want a flat washer on one side and a fender washer on the other, that way you can bolt this thing to the deal and put a lock nut on it so it doesn't back off. And they sent you a 9/16. You prayed for half-inch. You strived. You earned the money. You typed it in right. You ordered it on the thing. You've been to the hardware store, the other hardware store, the other hardware store. You're waiting for the 6 months for it finally to come in, and it's a 9/16. Put it in the shelf. You're going to need that. Put it in the shelf. You're going to need that. He didn't say no. He said not yet. A lot of the time. And because we're fussy children, because of our pride. And today I'm like, am I making these videos hoping my kid will see something and hear some fatherly advice? Sure. Am I doing this because when my mom died, I seen her video and it helped me so much? Yeah. But am I trying to be a good dude so that God will help my kids? 100%. 100%. Do I love God and I want to do it for His kids? 100%. 100%. I just said the same thing two different ways. We're shooting dice. We throw them down there. I see a a 1, a 4, and a 3, and you see a 1, a 5, and a 2. Is it dice? Is it one singular 6-sided dice from two perspectives? Yes. So you get into these things. This is what I'm going to challenge you with. This is going to be your ultimate challenge right here. It's bigger than that. I learned this from my sister, and she's not a Bible person. And when I was telling her about the Bible and everything, she's like, "Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but it's bigger than that." And I tell her some more stuff out of the Bible. Yeah, but it's bigger than that. Yeah, but it's bigger than that. And then there's just a sect of people that refer to Godology, how the fallen angels are trying to lower the status of the Creator as to God. So now it could be this God, this God, this God, or this God. It's like, no, it's the Creator. It's bigger than that. So whatever little box you got God in, it's bigger than that. When you look at the Bible and you come up with, 5 ways to look at this from 5 different perspectives, and maybe it could be more. Well, yeah, you got enough intelligence to realize it could be more, but you haven't moved that from speculation to statement. I know these 4 ways to look at it that's been described, and I know there's another way, and I know there's 37 other ways I can't comprehend, and I suspect it's way bigger than that. You know what I mean? I know there's more than 5 ways to read this scripture. I know that. And it's not because I know I can name the 5 or the 37 different ways. It's not that I can name all of them. It's that I know enough about God's character and the way that He works and His economy. And when I say economy, it's because numbers are quantifiably easy to digest, to think about. So while I'm chewing on these things, 2 plus 2 is 4. You can't outgive God or whatever. It's like, and then I got to consider things like I love my dog. My wife says I love my dog. I think the dog should stay outside. My wife lets him in the house and then wants him to get in the bed, and I'm like, no, I don't want I don't want to sleep with crunchy dog hair and stuff in the bed. I don't like that. And that's just a personal preference. But I love that dog. I just don't love him that much, And everybody's different or whatever. So to try to say I love the dog and she loves the dog is a great analogy. For I know there's more than 4 or 5 ways to look at this deal. I know for a fact there's 37, and then I suspect there's way more than that. And I'm just saying 37 as like the number that pops in my head. Is that divinely inspired that it's 37? Like, maybe He spoke through me before, and I don't deserve it, and you don't deserve it. None of us deserve it. But we were redeemed. If I take one of these pieces of paper over here and I walk in there with it, it's got coupons. If I redeem the coupons, I'm using the coupons to help pay for these groceries I'm fixing to buy. I sit here so long my arm's asleep. So what am I doing? What am I doing? Why am I doing it? And who's getting the glory for what I'm doing? What does it matter when I'm standing in front of the Creator? We're coming upon a time that is holy. I highly advise you to act accordingly to that. I can't advise you how to do that because I am ignorant. And I wouldn't want to steer you wrong. But we overcome the world by the blood of the Lamb, the word of our testimony, and we loved all our lives unto death. A different place says, if you seek to save your life, you will lose it. And if you lose your life for my sake, you will save it. It's a narrow path and only a few find it. I suggest you look in with a magnifying glass for the next 48 hours or so. Don't get too bogged down in the celebrations. Don't overeat. Stay awake in the daytime. Have some good fellowship. Get near and close to your family. Say a prayer for Charlie's people. Say a prayer for Candace Owens. She's either like one of the best people on the case or the worst example of evil I've ever seen. One of the two, for sure. All right, Rocky, I'll go get him.